Okay, welcome back everybody to the live webinar here at BINA. One of the most unbelievable things about the Torah is that although it was given close to 2,000, more than 3,000 years ago, nevertheless, Torah has what to say about things which just became relevant less than 100 years ago. And that only brings out how eternal and how true our Torah is that it has what to say about everything. Any subject under the sun, Torah will somehow, whether directly or indirectly, have a view and give us an opinion and a perspective on that idea. One such example is the concept of surrogate motherhood. So just a brief word on what exactly that is. That could be in two ways. Either a woman who does not ovulate, she can receive an egg from another woman, or a woman who does ovulate but cannot, for whatever reason, carry a child to term, carry a baby to term. She's physically incapable of doing so, and therefore she has an egg from another woman planted in her body. She takes an egg from her body and puts it in another woman. So in both cases, the egg belongs to one woman. In other words, one woman is the cause of the conception, so to speak, and another woman is the cause of the delivery and the birth. And the question here is, halachically, who is the mother? Obviously, we're not going to get involved here, emotionally speaking, who's the mother and who has the greater bond. That's not the purpose of this discussion. The purpose of this discussion is to examine halachically who's the mother. Now, you might ask, what difference does it make? Well, there's huge ramifications in halacha as to who the mother is. So, for example, regarding the prohibition of incest, obviously, one is forbidden to marry their mother's relatives, siblings, parents. You can't marry your grandparents. Right. The question is, who are your grandparents? Are your grandparents from the donor's side, the one whose egg it is, or are your grandparents and relatives from the one who delivered you, the one who carried you and delivered you? Who is your mother? Another halachic ramification it would have is regarding the laws of inheritance. Halachically, a child inherits their mother. Who's the mother? Another, obviously, fundamental difference is, let's say one of them is Jewish and the other one is not Jewish. Is the child Jewish? If the one who gives the egg Jewish and the one who delivers the baby is not, or vice versa, who's to decide? We know obviously that a person's Jewishness is determined by the mother, if they're Jewish from birth. The question here is, which mother, which woman determines if the child has the status of a Jew? Now, obviously, surrogate motherhood did not exist 3,000 years ago. The technology was not that advanced, it didn't exist a couple of hundred years ago. Recently, it became a much more common idea. There's one question if it's halachically permissible to even do such a thing. That's a separate discussion. And there are great halachic authorities who discuss that. And obviously, this is not the forum to rule on anything. And if such a question would ever arise, one should ask a rabbi who is an expert both in Jewish law and in the technology, who will decide if such a thing is even permissible to do. But let's say, granted that it was done already. Now, halachically, who is the mother? How would Torah have anything to say about this if this didn't really exist when the Torah was given? But what's fascinating is that there are many places where we can bring proofs one way or another, and we'll find contradictory proofs, and obviously we're going to need somebody who knows what they're talking about to work out exactly what is the halacha. But again, where I'm taking this from is a fascinating book called Headlines, where he takes these modern day ideas and shows us how we can find them in our ancient Torah. One example is absolutely fascinating, and that is regarding the story of Yosef and Dinah. So we know that Leah, the wife of Jacob, the wife of Yaakov Avinu, had 6 sons. Then she became pregnant again with a 7th child. Now at that time, Rachel had no children. The 2 maidservants, Bilhah and Zilpah, each had 2 sons. So Leah knew prophetically that Yaakov Avinu is only going to have 12 sons. And those 12 sons will be the foundation of the 12 tribes. And she knew that if she has a 7th son, then Rachel will only be able to have one son less than the maidservants. And that would be a great insult. She therefore prayed to God, and miraculously, the baby changed from being male into female. That's the story that most of us know, because that is the story that Rashi brings, the main commentary on the Chumash. However, there's another version of this story, and that is a version brought in Targum Yonasan ben Uziel. And he presents a different version, and he says like this, that actually Leah and Rachel were both pregnant at the same time. Leah with a boy, Rachel with a girl. Leah wanted that Rachel should at least have 2 sons, so she prayed to God, and actually the 2 fetuses miraculously switched wombs. So in other words, comes out of here is that we have a case of surrogate motherhood. We have a case of it's Rachel's egg who made Dinah, but it's Leah who actually delivered Dinah. Now, obviously, this is not a natural case of surrogate. This is a supernatural story, which probably only happened once in history at this time. This is an example which is brought as a miracle, which is not even something we should really be even praying for. Only a righteous woman like Leah is able to pray for such a miracle, because it's so out of the laws of nature. But according to this version of events, Dinah was from one mother. Her was conceived by one mother and delivered by another mother, who was her mother. Now, what would seem apparent is that Leah was her mother, considered her mother according to the Torah. As the Torah clearly says, Dinah bat Leah, Dinah the daughter of Leah. So you see from that the one who delivers you is halachically your mother, because Leah was considered her mother. However, it's not so simple. It could be he just calls her that because that was her apparent mother. That's what everyone knew as her mother. But actually we can bring a proof on the contrary. After the story, terrible, tragic story of Dinah and Shechem, how a person by the name of Shechem raped Dinah, and her 2 brothers, Shimon and Levi, attacked the city and took revenge, the commentaries tell us that her brother Shimon actually married her. Now, one is not allowed to marry their sister, not only after the Torah was given, but it's actually one of the 7 Noahide laws. Incest is prohibited not only for Jews, it's prohibited by the Torah for all of mankind. How was Shimon able to marry his sister? And the only possible answer is that Dinah wasn't his sister. Dinah was his half-sister. Was his half-sister because they shared a father, but Dinah's mother was really Rachel, halachically speaking. And therefore, before the Torah was given, incest to a half-sibling was allowed. After the Torah was given, it wasn't, but before it was. And that would explain how Shimon was able to marry Dinah. But that's a sort of a proof from a very mystical sort of story, miraculous story, not so much a halachic proof. A fascinating place where we can find perhaps a solution to this issue is from a most unexpected source, and that is about a dying cow's milk. But just to preface a small introduction, we are told like this, that of course we're not allowed to eat meat and milk together. That's a prohibition in the Torah. Don't cook a goat in its mother's milk. The Torah tells it to us 3 times. We learn out from that you're not allowed to cook, you're not allowed to have benefit from it, and you're not allowed to eat it. The Torah says it in a very specific case. Don't cook a goat in its mother's milk. But however, we learn out that the prohibition applies to all cases. Any milk, any meat is prohibited to eat and cook together. So why then does the Torah give us this very specific example of a kid being cooked in its mother's milk? The Talmud learns out, the various system of learning out laws, this is coming to teach me something. It's coming to teach me that when is milk considered halachically milk and therefore prohibited to have together with meat? Only when the animal is a potential mother. In other words, when the animal is alive. If the animal dies and then you take out milk from the animal once it's dead, that milk is not milchik, meaning that milk, at least according to the letter of at least according to the letter of the law, there might be other issues with this, but that milk will be permitted to have and eat and cook together with meat, because the verse tells us lo yisavashel gedi b'chalev imoi, in its mother's milk, and this is not a potential mother. Rabbi Akiva Eger, a great halachic authority, raises the following question. There's an animal which we call a treifa. A treifa means an animal which is halachically terminally ill, which means this has the status that it's going to die soon. It's terminally ill, that animal. Such an animal cannot deliver a baby because it's not going to live long enough. So would the same principle apply? If you milked a treifa, if you milked a terminally ill animal, it's not dead yet, but it's not a potential mother, maybe that milk is also permitted to eat together with meat. And he says this will be dependent on the question, when do you become a mother? Or what makes you a mother? What makes the animal a mother? Or a potential mother? Does the potential to conceive a baby make the animal a mother? Or does the potential to deliver an animal make the animal a mother? If it's just the potential to conceive, well, a treifa, a terminally ill animal, can also conceive. It won't live long enough to deliver it, but it will conceive it. And therefore, it's a potential mother. And if it's a potential mother, its milk is considered milk, and therefore forbidden to have together with meat. But if you only become a mother when, halachically speaking, when you deliver the baby, then this animal would not be considered a potential mother because it will not live long enough to deliver a baby, and therefore it's not considered milk and can be eaten with meat. And he draws a proof from the Talmud that a person is considered a mother from the time of conception. In other words, conceiving a baby makes you a mother. If you apply that to the case of surrogate motherhood, so although this woman didn't actually deliver the baby, but since the woman was the one who provided the egg for the conception of the baby, halachically, maybe that woman would be considered the mother. So that's another very interesting place where perhaps we could learn out about this dilemma of who's considered the halachic mother. Now, of course, this is all a discussion in theory. Should this question ever arise, whether it's even permissible to do so? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Depends how it's done, depends under who it's done. And whether it actually happened, is the child, who's the halachic mother, is the child Jewish or not Jewish? All of this needs to be decided by a proper halachic authority and should be asked to those people. Have a wonderful day.